Hey, my name's Chris Reardon. I'm the California Director of Government Affairs for the Farm Bureau, and welcome to a day as a policy advocate on your behalf here in Sacramento. I'm always asked, because I've been doing this a long time, what is it that you do at the California Farm Bureau? And I always remind them that we have one of the great jobs in the world because we're advocating on behalf of farmers and ranchers in this great state. I actually have a team. It's not just me, but I have a team of 7 people. Cover a cross-section of issues related to land use, water, air quality, transportation, pesticide use, all sorts of issues, cattle, dairy, you name it. If it affects California agriculture, we represent those issues. It's also important to note that as we get into every legislative year, that roughly begins in January with the governor's budget. The third week of every February, there's bill introductions that sort of help us or direct us in terms of issues of importance to us and where we're going to engage and not engage in California on our issues. And then we really look really closely at the legislative calendar. It helps us direct where we're going to be, what we're going to do, what speakers we need to do, bring in, or other issues. So that legislative calendar and the bill introduction periods really help shape the rest of the year for us. Well, for us, we have a policy book in California. The policy book, by the way, I think it's interesting and unique because, by the way, it's voted on by our members. It's a real democratic process that farmers from all over state engage on annually, and we talk about areas of policy that are important to us, areas that we support, area oppose, or things that we can do better, or things that we might engage in that have concerns for us. And so it makes it really, really a democratic process that we think is a good thing, that reflects a cross-section of California farmers in this state. In terms of policy development, how do you develop policy? What does it do? Well, we looked at the policy book, and oftentimes we try to tweak our policy. We might create a new policy depending on discussions that take place during the year at our commodity meetings, et cetera. But we really look very carefully at ways that can enhance our policy book. Either through direct contact with our legislative members and staff, or it might be a regulatory issue. We might work with, for example, the Department of Pesticide Regulation on a licensing issue, or it could be a registration issue. So we work on those issues as well. But for us, that's normally the way we actually engage, is through our policy book. And also, we also engage through, by the way, bill introductions. If there's a bill that is a huge concern to us, for example, this year we're concerned about a Williamson Act bill that was introduced, AB 2528. And there's some other bills of interest for us too as it relates to pesticide use in this state. So it really, really allows us to engage on your issues as we go through the following year. None of this happens without sort of this close working relationship with the government affairs team. As I mentioned previously, we talk to legislative staff, legislative members. Relationship building is probably the most important thing we do in this state, okay, on your behalf, because look, we have members that represent every component, every part of this state. We represent primarily rural California, suburban California, or on the edges of suburban California. So it's important that we tell your story, because we can't be effective without telling your stories effectively. And what we do in the Farm Bureau, we want to make sure that we have a healthy, thriving rural California that's important to our members. And so that's one of our jobs too, is making sure people fundamentally understand the importance of growing food and fiber, protecting our farmers and ranchers through relationship building, and through the ability to persuading them about what we do is important, and I'd argue not only for Californians, but now for this country. And as you know, we're involved in global trade and all sorts of different commodities. And we think that's important too, because that's good for California, it's good for our growers. Folks always ask me, what's the most fun about your job? And I always say, well, it's interesting. It's never boring, as you might imagine here in Sacramento. There's a lot going on, but the good news is that what we do is important. 400 different commodities. We lead the world, and I could go on in terms of our impact on food, and not only in this state, but in this country, in the global marketplace. And so it makes it fun. We have a terrific story to tell. Yes, it's challenging in California. We have it's not surprising to you that we have enormous challenges related to regulatory burdens, the cost of doing business in the state, all those sorts of factors, right? But also, we tried to tell the story of what these issues can do to us and the success of our farmers and the success of all of you as we get down the road here. So look, I think the job's fun. I think our team views it as we have a great story. And by the way, our job's it makes it a lot more fun when you got a great story to tell, and we do here at the California Farm Bureau.